Hello everybody. Today we will be covering what is Docker and how to install and get it up and running on your system. Some of you may have heard the word Docker being thrown around before, and now a lot of job postings are listing it as an asset, if you know it beforehand. So what is Docker and what are the benefits of it? Docker uses what are called containers to package up an application with all the parts it needs, and ships it out all as one package. The containers can be considered as isolated environments where we only install the libraries and packages that we need for our project to get it up and running. So why do we need an isolated container versus just installing the dependencies on your own system? Well, there are several scenarios where this is very useful, but most of them revolve around managing different projects. Imagine a scenario where you want to clone a repository and run it on your own system, but one of its dependencies is for an outdated module that if you run the newer version, breaks the project that you clone. So you could downgrade the module in question, but then if you would like the most recent version of a module in another project, you'd have to upgrade it again and rinse and repeat for all the projects and modules. Okay, so we installed Docker to encapsulate our dependencies, but how is this different than using a virtual environment? Well, in a virtual environment, like for example in Python, the virtual environment encapsulates just the Python dependencies, whereas Docker is encapsulating the entire operating system itself. This solves the problem of it works on my machine when someone else is trying to run your project and are encountering errors. Finally then, why not just use a virtual machine? Well, a virtual machine is abstracting the operating system and allocating resources for your machine so you can only have so many virtual machines going before your system is tapped out. And they're also quite slow to start. Whereas Docker is not allocating any resources, and instead it's speaking directly to the kernel of your machine, and this allows us for quicker startup. It allows us to run many more Docker containers simultaneously, and the performances Docker containers are closer to your native operating system because you're not allocating any separate resources, so when you're running, you're just running it on your own OS. So let's get started on downloading Docker's desktop application if you're on Mac and Windows. So let's head over to their documentation page. And if you click on your operating system, so for example, installing desktop for Mac, you should see this Mac with Intel chip, which if you have your MacBook before 2021, would be this option here. And then Mac with the new Apple chips, the M1 chips. And then similar idea here for Windows, except just one download button. And then what can we expect once we download it? It's fairly simple. You download the application on our Mac. We just drag and drop the application into the application folder. And then once we double click to run it, you should see this little Docker icon in the top of your status bar. And this is going to tell us that our Docker container is running. And if we look at Windows, it's very similar. So on our Windows application, once we have it downloaded and installed, we just run our desktop application, and similar thing again, except on your bottom right, you just see the Docker icon, and that's when you know you have it installed correctly. So let's get started. I'm on a Mac, so I'm just going to come here, install desktop application. I have an Intel chip, and now the download begins. It's about 600 megabytes, so depending on your internet connection, it should take a couple of minutes. Great, that's downloaded. Let's open the image. Now this might take a couple minutes as well just to get it open and verified. Once it is open, we'll pretty much see this application pop up to if we want to install our Docker application and applications. Okay, so that took only a minute or two to get verified, and now we see the screen come up, and we just simply drag the docker.app into our application folder, and once we do that, we should have Docker application installed, or the Docker desktop application installed. And to see and confirm we have it installed, let's actually open up the terminal. And in here, if we type in Docker TACV, it should give us our Docker version of our application installed. However, if we type in Docker version, we should get this error saying that we're not able to connect to the Docker application. That's because we haven't started our application. It's not running. The server isn't running. So to run the server, let's just open up our new application that we installed. You can also do this through the icon, by the way. And now it's starting the engine. And this shouldn't take too long, maybe a minute or two. So that took only about a couple minutes. It might take a little bit longer if this is your first time running the application. But now our Docker server is running, but none of our containers are running. So to check that the server is running, we just have Docker version, and it will show you here the server engine. It's running the version it's on. And there you go. We have now officially installed Docker and got it running on our system. So just to do a recap, we have covered what is Docker, what are the benefits of it, what are the difference between using Docker and a virtual environment or a virtual machine, how to install it, how to get it up and running on your system. So if you guys found this video educational and helpful, please like and subscribe. And tune in next time where we will cover how to get your container up and running by making your own Docker file.